Welcome to episode 137 from the Shed End with myself, Theo, and the other Theo. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Been a busy week, 3 days in the office. It's first mandatory week where we've been asked to go in 3 times a week, which has been a challenge. That's why I'm enjoying my work from home on Friday. Also enjoyed a weekend in Portugal last week,
Yeah,
which was
yeah.
really nice. Got to see Sporting CP once again, scouting Victor Gyökeres for when he
Yeah.
comes to Chelsea next summer, which was a really good game. Unfortunately, they couldn't replicate the performance in the Portuguese Cup against Arsenal. I was quite disappointed with how they played against Arsenal, and a lot of Sporting fans were surprised actually by the how one-sided that game was. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Looking forward to the weekend. Premier League action returns on Sunday. I'm always looking forward to that. But yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Like looking forward to the football, amongst other things. But yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, we're going to touch on Heidenheim. It was a good performance. It's probably put me in a better mood than I thought it would do on a Friday afternoon. So, but I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the weekend. But before we get into the episode, as always, please make sure you subscribe. You like the video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not and you're on the audio version still, please go ahead to YouTube. The Linktree link is in the description on both the audio and YouTube. Make sure you go over and subscribe and follow our social accounts before you do anything else this weekend. But I wanted to start off because obviously there's been a lot of talk, especially in some of my WhatsApp groups over the last couple of days, getting my thoughts on Frank Lampard returning back to management with Coventry City, which I feel I did touch on it on one of the videos I did earlier this week. But I want to get your thoughts first of all. Mark Robbins, who was there 7 years at Coventry, took them from League One back into the Championship, almost got them back into the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, missing out on penalties, got to a semi-final, played Manchester United and played them very well in that FA Cup semi-final. But what's your thoughts on Frank Lampard returning back into football, 18 months away from management, back into, which might be a difficult team, Coventry 17th currently in the league?
Yeah, I mean, firstly I forgot how successful I suppose Coventry have been in the last couple of years because I think they'd gone into administration. Was it a
They did,
couple
yeah.
10 years ago or so? So they've done really well to recover, and I feel like Robins, credit to him, semi-final like you said, of the FA Cup, where I think they only lost 4-3 to
Yeah.
Manchester United. Playoff final against Luton, I believe, where they just missed out on their return to the Premier League. But yeah, maybe this season it hasn't really gone to plan, and they wanted to change. They currently sit in 17th. I am pleased for Lampard. I'm really, really pleased because I think as a Chelsea fan, you just want to see him kind of manage a team. And I also think a lot of people are really harsh on how he's performed as a manager. I agree that maybe he's not to the level of a Chelsea football club, but when people kind of compare him to, I don't know, Gary Neville's or who else has had a go at management, even Paul Scholes, I think, when he went to
Yeah.
Oldham or things like this. I think that's a complete different kind of bucket we're talking about. And actually, Lampard's got a bit of managerial experience and pedigree. I think he did really, really well in the Championship when he was at Derby in 2018, 2019.
Missed out on the playoff.
Uh, Missed out on the playoffs just, I think it was it
Aston
Villa in the
Villa.
final?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, against John Terry's Villa. I remember
Yeah.
that when he was the assistant manager.
Yeah.
But his first stint at Chelsea, I think, was relatively successful given the transfer ban, top form, not having Eden Hazard. And now I think it's just a question of maybe he realised he just needs to take a step back and maybe not really aim as high as the Premier League, but maybe return to the Championship, which is what we've been saying for a while. Maybe even, I think I always mention maybe Celtic, Rangers, those type of clubs, maybe in the Scottish Premier League as well. Um, but yeah, I feel like Lampard was a bit of a tricky one because he has been out of management for almost, I think, a year and a half now.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of period of time where maybe he wants reconsidering his options, whether he wants to go back into management, whether he wants to go into punditry, whether he wants to just focus on life in London with his family. And also, I've always kind of had him a bit as a sporting director at times.
Yeah.
You look at some of the talent that he scouted at Chelsea, the likes of Erling Haaland, Declan Rice, even Victor Gyökeres, apparently, who he wanted to sign at Everton. Makes you think that this guy's talented when it comes to spotting good quality players. But no, I am pleased for him. I'm really pleased for him. I'm also kind of hoping that maybe this move to Coventry could put him in the shop window for potentially a bigger club to come, asking for him maybe next summer or in a year and a half time. But I do also think maybe he just misses the routine of management and wants to get back into action. And we spoke offline about this yesterday, but I think London, Coventry is only about a 2 hour drive. So I think that also kind of played on his mind when thinking about, being in London, commuting, and sticking around to be close to his family as well. But overall, I'm relatively pleased about the move for him.
I am as well. I do think it's not a gamble. I think that's the wrong word I'm using, because I do think, like you said, Derby, you think about his first time at Chelsea, under the circumstances as well with the transfer ban, it was always going to be difficult. He's walked into very difficult environments. Everton being another one where, there was a turmoil off the field with the ownership at the time as well. The players and the standards of the players weren't really what he needed to keep Everton afloat at the time. So he has always walked into very difficult situations. This is no different. I feel like this is another situation where, 17th in the league, the fans loved Mark Robins. So of course there's a bit of disgruntled between fans and ownership at the moment with the fact that they've sacked what they arguably felt was the man to just see them through this storm at the moment. But Frank Lampard for me is one of those managers that I think even in the Athletic, he from his quotes yesterday, he said that he's not afraid to step down and go back into the Championship. He's not. Let me try and find the actual quote so I'm not paraphrasing. Let's see if we can find them. I've still got them open, so it's good. I've got no ego that needs to take me to the Premier League. I'm very happy to work with people to try and make this club better. I want Coventry fans to be happy with the club that I produce. Now, I think that's really sort of fitting for what Lampard is all about. He's not ashamed or afraid to step down again and, regroup. And I think 18 months away from management, it's probably done him the world of good. He's probably learned, he's probably been around clubs at the time very, discreetly, and potentially learning a bit more about his management, how he wants to adapt himself into these environments. And I hope that's what he's been doing. We know he's been doing the punditry on the side, but hopefully he's been doing some of these things as well, where he can rediscover himself as a manager. And like you said, I think it is disrespectful when we talk about him as a Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Phil Neville. He's definitely above all of those, because he's proven himself at the top level by getting Derby to Wembley, getting Chelsea to the Champions League. He's done it, so we've got to put a bit of credit on his name.
Yeah, and also I think it's a big achievement, but it's not spoken about enough. But he managed to get Everton out of the relegation zone and secure them a spot in the Premier League when I think was it Rafa Benitez just before we left them, I think in 19th or 18th. So yeah, like you said, that club was kind of in a bit of a turmoil period, and he did really well there. But definitely I feel it's disrespectful comparing him to some of those other English managers. I really like his attitude going into this move. Maybe he's aware that Coventry fans see him as a Premier League manager. Maybe they expect him to get back into the Premier League, but his ambition or goal is just for the fans to be happy with the club and the football that he produces. So yeah, I'm really wishing him the best, and I'll be keeping a close eye on Coventry.
No, well, I mean, I've got a couple of mates that are Coventry fans, so I always I've always had a soft spot for Coventry. I think I've worked there before. It's not the best city to work in, but it's definitely a place that's very passionate about their football, passionate about ice hockey of all sports as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do there. I think he can turn things around. I'd like to see him hopefully get Coventry at least into the top half, maybe the playoffs this season. He's got a good player in Ellis Sims there at the team, within the team. So, they've got some good players at Coventry. I think they've just had a really difficult season. You look back to the past 2 seasons that they've played under Mark Robins, it could just be fatigue and burnout. And, they lost Hammer to Sheffield United. He was a big player for them throughout that playoff and the FA Cup wins the last couple of seasons. So it could just be a rebuild. It could just be, steady the ship and get through this season and see what you can do next season with them.
Definitely, I've actually just got that squad up. They've got Jada Silva, former Chelsea Academy boy. Lampard would have known, would have seen him around the training ground. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, and some good players there, like you mentioned, Sims amongst some others. So exciting squad, and they definitely feel like they should be higher than 17th, and hopefully Frank Lampard's the man to kind of steer that ship.
Yeah, agreed. Let's move on to more Chelsea related topics now. Simon Johnson broke yesterday. He didn't break. He broke the news yesterday. That Chelsea captain Reece James' latest injury is another leg. It's on the other leg, that he operated on last year. So it's not the same injury. It's not the same hamstring injury that kept him out the game for a considerable amount of time. I think it was 4 months last season. This is the other leg, so it's a new, fresh injury to a hamstring, which, according to reports, will keep Reece James out of the team for at least for the remainder of the December period, busy Christmas period as well. Theo, what's your thoughts on Reece James? Again, we're here, deja vu, on another injury to Chelsea's captain.
I think I need to look back at the timestamp I made on one of the previous recordings when I said we'd be back talking about another injury in like I think I had beginning of December time. So
it was a captain. When we found out he was captain, you did say we'll be back.
Yeah,
he'll be back.
Yeah, yeah. It's frustrating. It's also getting a bit. I feel bad for Reece James because fans are getting a bit angry now as well. They're almost turning on him. Which is normal because we know how much of a good player he is. We know that we've given him the armband. There should be a sense of trust and a sense of his presence on the pitch. And we're not getting that from him. So I feel like he's scapegoated in a way. A lot of the blame and the frustration is put on Reece James, but in reality, it should be put on the club. It should be put on the rehabilitation team, the medical fitness team. But also, I think as Chelsea fans now, you've just got to accept that he's never going to get back to that level, I think. And he's never going to be able to get back to that fitness level. Like you just said, this is not the same leg injury that he had surgery on, I think, in 2023. This is the other leg, which is good news in a way that it's not the same recurring injury that's popping up each time, but it's also bad news that you're thinking that how injury prone he is. And he's capable of getting injured, knee, hamstring, ankle, whatever type of injury it is. So it's frustrating. But I think what I've really come to accept now in the last year and a half is that we need to start planning without Reece James. And that's looking at, how we can really get the best out of Malo Gusto, who's looked like maybe not as good this season as last year, but still a really good player in there and still very, very young, we forget. And also another player that we haven't spoken too much about on this podcast, but Josh Achampong as well, who there's still a lot of kind of uncertainty about his future. I think he's only made the 1 or 2 appearances for Chelsea yet. Maybe one against Barrow, and I think maybe one in the Conference League against
Conference League,
yeah. But
no, I don't think he's featured in the Conference League.
No, maybe not actually, because there's still. I think the club mentioned that they want to sort out his contract before.
He hasn't played since September. He hasn't kicked a ball for us in September, I think.
Which is slightly worrying because that probably means that he's probably thinking elsewhere in terms of his future. And the clubs that have been linked to him: PSG, Real Madrid,
Bayern Munich,
Liverpool, Bayern Munich. And these are the top boys of European football. And if these clubs are kind of sniffing for his signature, then you're kind of thinking like, well, why are we not getting him tied up to a new contract? And I genuinely feel, given Reece James' fitness issues, given Malo Gusto's fitness issues as well, there's a chance for Achampong to play a part in this defence, especially if that means rather than having Fofana or Disasi right back, or obviously a natural right back, which is Achampong. But yeah, back to Reece James, it's frustrating. It's getting a bit, deja vu, like you said. But I've also come to accept now that he's not a guaranteed starter anymore. He should have been given the captaincy. And we've just got to kind of maybe start planning our first 11 or even our matchday squads without him now. That's the reality of it.
I do. I mean, I just read there on the Athletic, part of Simon Johnson's report yesterday, that this is the 9th time James has been ruled out with a hamstring injury in the past 4 years. He went 18 months without completing 90 minutes in the Premier League between April 2023 and October 2024. It doesn't read well. And I do get a portion of the blame or the responsibility has to fall on medicals team, rehabilitation team. But if I'm being 100% honest, I just don't think he's capable of playing at this top level anymore. I don't think his body will allow it to happen, which is a shame because he's really, really young still. He's still got, years ahead of him. But for him not to be able to complete, 2 back-to-back 90-minute games, or even, come on as a sub, I think there was signs of that when he didn't feature. I think it was against Manchester United. He was on the bench and we all expected he was going to start, and it was I can't remember who played there. It wasn't Gusto. I can't remember who played. Did we have? But it wasn't.
Yeah, I was going to say Cucurella, and then we had another like a makeshift left back in Colwell or something. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a bit of a weird surprise formation. Yeah.
So for him not to be able to do that, he's still the highest earner. I don't want to bring wages into it, but he's still got 4 years left on the deal. He's the highest earner. I think £350,000 a week. It's a lot of money. To it's almost 14, maybe 15 million off the top of my head. It's something along those lines in terms of what the duration of the contract that's left. It's a shame for him. It really is. It must be a very isolated world that he lives in most of the time when he sees his teammates playing games and they're training every day, and it must be isolating mentally. It must be draining and absorbing. His best options for me would be to look elsewhere, and that's not because I don't think he's got the qualities. I just don't think he's going to get the game time that he needs. There's a World Cup coming up soon. You'd love to see him play, for England, represent his country, and try and win something internationally as well. He's not going to do that at Chelsea because he just won't. He can't do it. He just can't. His body just won't let him. There's talk about Benfica and Barcelona potentially coming in, warmer climate that might help him, but I generally, if I was honest, I'd hope he's thinking about coaching badges at this point, because it could get to that. It could get to the point where he has to take early retirement and look at alternative, Ryan Mason. I know it was a totally different, separate issue, but look at an alternative route into football. It's a shame for him because he's a talent.
Yeah. I think it was Thomas Tuchel who had like a career-ending injury, and then he just kind of like gave up on football and went into like coaching.
Yeah.
But I think what worries me the most about Reece James is these injuries now they're popping up in training during like the off season when the international break. It's not when he's on the pitch giving it 100% effort in a high intensity match against Liverpool or against Manchester United. It's at Cobham on the training ground, at Cobham in the gym when he's probably lifting weights or doing squats, deadlifts.
Yeah.
And this is the part that worries me because clearly he's not really. It's probably at a low intensity kind of workout.
Imagine against a top club, an Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, or I just don't know how he would cope.
I fancy him against Mbappe, giving his face more recently.
To be fair, to be honest, this is a Chelsea podcast, but Conor Bradley done amazing against Mbappe the other night. But in all seriousness, I do think he's. We've seen that. I remember saying it to you maybe last season before. We've seen the best of Reece James. We will never see Reece James at that level, and it's such a shame. Is he 24? I feel like he's only 24. He's got to be
very young.
He's so young, but the amount of injuries, your legs, your muscles are never going to recover from those. If you're getting those sort of injuries that much at that age, right off your career. Not to say you won't have one, but think about, Ledley King was playing one game a week for a long period of his time at Tottenham because of his knees and the impact the footballer just had on his knees. Reece James is going to have to consider doing, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment. And even that, like you said, training injuries are still popping up as an issue. So it's a shame for him. It really is.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Just really hope there's like some kind of solution, or I think the club even said in a statement, or whoever broke the news, that they're going to try to find a solution on their side because they really want to put an end to this. But it seems like easier said than done when it's kind of like in the player's body, it's his build, it's his regime, it's difficult. But I always remember getting very emotional, not emotional, but a bit like shocked when you kind of said like, we've seen the best of Reece James. I'm like, no, he's our captain. He's the best right back in the world. And this was about a year and a half ago. And now I kind of completely understand where you're coming from. And I just echo what you said back then. So he was definitely the oracle, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a shame for him. It really is. One thing I do want to say before we move on, he was asked, Enzo Maresca was asked about him in the press conference before the Heidenheim game. And I did like what he said, that the media focus too much on Reece James rather than just allowing him to recover from an injury. There's all this speculation and talk about his future and is he captain worthy and all the rest of it. And I like the fact that Maresca was, obviously he's going to articulate himself very well, but the fact that he was able to defend him in the way that he did, I thought that was really good. And it does kind of take a bit of the, makes the media think a little bit about, mentally, what is this doing to the player? Talking about it every single week in the press. So that was a good thing I thought from Maresca. Yeah,
no, I really agree with Maresca and the way he's handled the situation. And like you said, mentally it must not be easy. Kind of like these injuries for Reece James, it's mentally not easy for us because he's our captain. He's a player. He was probably
you want to see him do well.
You want to see him do well, exactly. Yeah. But for him, it's probably like amplified by much more because he wants to be playing on the pitch. He wants to be going to the World Cup next in 2 years' time. He wants to be the starting right back. He wants to be winning silverware trophies. So yeah, mentally it must be really draining for him. And like you said, just seeing his teammates train, be traveling to Heidenheim, to Panathinaikos, to Kazakhstan. left at home recovering, it's tricky. It's not easy.
Not at all, but hopefully, I mean, I'm saying this with a very loosely, but hopefully we get to see him come back soon. If not, then, as I said, I'd love to see him still have some sort of role at Chelsea, whether that's coaching or ambassadory, so it's just some sort of role. If it is worst case scenario that he can't continue as a player at Chelsea, then maybe even for the duration of his contract he still has a role at Chelsea to play, whether that's, as I said, coach or something else. But let's move on. Let's move on to the Conference League. Something positive. Another win. I'm going to be honest, so watching Heidenheim yesterday, I did say to you, it was almost like watching a friendly. I felt like I was watching a pre-season game. If I closed my eyes, very squinted them, it felt like I was in the USA somewhere, Colorado. And we were playing Heidenheim in a friendly that was it just didn't feel like a competitive game at all. But 2-0, very good result for us. Jadon Sancho was pulling the strings in midfield. What was your thoughts, Theo, on the game? Very convincing.
Yeah, I think prior to the trip to Athens, I kind of said the Panathinaikos game would be our trickiest out of all our 6 fixtures. But then I think even before kickoff yesterday, I quickly changed my mind and saw when that Heidenheim won 3 out of 3 and 9 points level with us. Yeah. Bundesliga team, and no disrespect to Greek football, but Bundesliga is probably a bit of a higher quality. So I kind of had this fixture, especially away from home, as our trickiest one. And I still kind of even though we won 2-0, we got a clean sheet, I still feel like it was not as straightforward at times. It was there were moments I thought were quite, Heidenheim looked in control. But no, I'm pleased. I'm really, really pleased considering all the players we left behind in London. Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Gusto, Cucurella, Jackson, Madueke, and then obviously Fofana, Palmer and Lavia, who aren't picked in the Conference League squad. It gave us quite a small pool of players to pick from. But all those players who played a part yesterday, I thought did really well. I thought Badiashile was good again following his performance against Leicester.
Yeah.
But I think
he's redeeming himself in your eyes.
Slowly, yeah. I might give him a few more good performances, and we might be calling him Goodyear and not Badiashile.
Shit.
but yeah, no. Like you mentioned, Sancho 2 assists now, and I think that's 5 assists and 6 starts for Chelsea. Really well taken goal from Nkuku, and his movement to get into the penalty box after starting the chance was good as well. For Dewsbury Hall looked really sharp in midfield. Mudryk as well, his finish. I know it's kind of cut across to him, but it was brilliant. A really, really good finish, proper postage stamp of the goal. Even if the keeper was kind of not on his near post to start off, and no keeper saving that. But I think the player I really wants to highlight, which you've currently got now on the screen, is Philip Jorgensen, who I thought was absolutely immense. Pulled off some amazing saves. His distribution was good as well. He looked in control, considering that he's not actually regularly starting for Chelsea, and actually considering that Heidenheim had, I think, 11 shots on goal.
They were testing him.
They were testing him, and he was shots that usually would typically go in, and he was just managing to stick out an arm in the right place or make his body big. That double save at one point he made towards the end, I thought was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So this just begs the question now, and probably makes it a bit of more of a dilemma for Maresca. Does he stick with his words and continue with Sanchez, or does he just kind of own up and swallow his pride and starts to play Jurgensen now in the Premier League? Personally, I feel like Jurgensen hasn't done anything wrong to be dropped. He made that one mistake, which I highlight quite often against Servette in the playoffs. But now, personally, I just think he looks in control, and particularly, I think any other keeper's probably conceding at least one goal yesterday, and he got his clean sheet, and he looked like he was kind of organising his back line well as well.
He was.
We were playing the offside trap really well. I think Heidenheim had the ball in the net about 3 times, but all 3 of them were offsides. So yeah, I really enjoy Philip Jorgensen's performance, and hopefully he can start a few more games, and that's not just in the Conference League, but also in the Prem. Yeah.
You just asked a question to Maresca. It's a dilemma. I can answer it for him. He's got to drop Sanchez. He has to drop him. I think if we're ever going to try and progress with this team as it is, we are still building. We're still in transition. We're still trying to push into that Champions League element of the league and the Premier League, and obviously keep maintaining an unbeaten record in the Conference League. He has to start Jurgensen. He looks so much comfortable between the sticks, and you said before, he was commanding the defense. There was a moment where I think Badiashile almost put him under a bit of pressure with a back pass, and you could see that Jurgensen was that annoyed with Badiashile. It's almost that sort of aggression towards a player, but not to the point where it's more passion than aggression. It's more frustration, and you see a lot more of that with him than you do with Sanchez. Not to say Sanchez doesn't do that, but he just seems a bit more calmer with a solid goalkeeper, a more convincing goalkeeper in between in the goal. I thought he was man of the match for us last night. He definitely kept a clean sheet, which I think is important as a goalkeeper. I was really impressed with Dewsbury Hall and Cassidy in the midfield. I do think it was. We said after the final whistle, the ref could have maybe let the second yellow for Cassidy go, because I think, yes, it's probably a foul, but if you're going to blow your whistle 10, 15 seconds after the sending off, who I think you said he now misses a Starner, which is still
which is a shame, because you kind of wanted a similar squad and similar.
He would have started.
He would have started, because you probably would have rested Enzo, Caicedo, and even
Lavia's not in the team.
Lavia's not in the team, so probably in another double pivot of Dewsbury Hall and Cassidy. But just on the topic of goalkeepers, Petrovic.
Well,
I wanted to ask you. There's been a lot of rumours about, we've been looking at him, we've been monitoring his Strasbourg performances. Yeah. I'm interested.
Well, someone said to me, and I don't know if it's true. I mean, I'm taking a source from Twitter, so it could be very, very the other realm. He's conceded a lot of goals for Strasbourg. Now, this could be a defensive issue. This is not always down to just because the goalkeeper's letting goals in. It's not always the goalkeeper's fault, but I did like Petrovic when we had him, and I think he's definitely a step up massively from Sanchez. I would recall him, but then you've got a conundrum of how many goalkeepers do you need? How many goalkeepers do we really need in the team? I'm trying to think who's still there now at the club. We've got Bergstrom.
Bergstrom, and then we've got Penders and Slanina.
Slanina on loan, but we would have Sanchez, we'll have Jurgensen, we'd have Petrovic if we record them. So there's three not first choice, but your three goalkeepers that potentially would be expecting to be first choice at Chelsea this season. Part of me wants to recall him, part of me wants to leave him at Strasbourg, where he's able to just enjoy the rest of the season without kind of coming and disrupting what we've kind of got with hopefully Jurgensen or Sanchez this season. I'd keep him at Strasbourg. What about you?
I think I'd agree. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think what you kind of mentioned was really important. Don't bring someone in who's going to disrupt what we currently have, and let him play his football out there. Maybe make a decision in the summer whether you sell, you recall, you loan out again.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with what you said. He has conceded a lot. And I think we're just so focused on this Chelsea bubble of when loan players do well, but we don't actually look at their performances maybe when they concede or when they miss big chances. So yeah, I think I would just recall him. I think it's also keep him where he is, and I think it's also this Chelsea mentality of almost quite spoiled, where as soon as things go wrong, find a fix.
Quick
and that
solution.
fix isn't always the quick solution. Yeah, recall this player, bring back this person. He can't be any worse than Sanchez, etc., etc. And I just don't think that's the right kind of fix that we need right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I did watch Courtois the other night, and I was thinking I'd love to have Courtois. I know he let 2 goals in, or was it 3 or 2? 2 goals against Liverpool, but I'd love to have Courtois back. I still think he's a really solid goalkeeper.
He's an absolute arsehole, but a bloody good goalkeeper. Yeah, you can't deny it. He's the best goalkeeper in the world, but an absolute terrible. The way he left Chelsea. The thing is, I was thinking about this actually watching that Madrid game. He wanted to leave. Why keep someone who doesn't want to leave? And we had a gentleman's agreement with Hazard where it was you can leave, but only next year. Yeah. And Hazard very kindly agreed to that. Whereas Courtois, we have to remember, he stopped training.
Yeah,
he wasn't getting in his Bentley Aston Martin driving to Cobham to train. He was like, no, I'm staying at home until you let me go to Madrid.
Yeah.
And that's basically when all our goalkeeper problems started.
They've come from that.
Yeah. So we should never really properly replace them.
We should have put a clause in his contract to say if we mess things up in the goalkeeper department, you must return to Chelsea. You have to train. And but yeah, no, I think he's probably been that was the domino that started the effects of where we are now with goalkeepers. So, let's hope we can resolve it. I still think we'll get into our predicted lineups for Sunday, but if you've been watching the YouTube videos, you'll know who are having goal on Sunday. We're going to get to that shortly. Just before we move on from the Heidenheim game, Mikhailo Mudryk, you just mentioned him, very, very good. It feels like he's enjoying the Conference League. He's obviously not really starting the games in the Premier League, so this is his only opportunity to showcase what he can do. But he looks a totally different player to what we mentioned last season, and the frustration we had. He's assisting, he's scoring goals, and they're all wonder goals as well. They're not like tap-ins or a little shot in the corner of the goal. They're brilliant goals that he's scoring. Is there a shout that he's pushing his way into Maresca's plans for the Premier League?
Conference League's his level, that's why.
I was going to say that, but I thought
no, to be fair on him, like, he has been performing really well in the Conference League, and even he's had flashes of brilliance when he's come on as a substitute in the Prem. I'm thinking back to Nottingham Forest. I think he made that blitzing run down the flank and crossed it into Nkuku. I think Sells put off a good, brilliant save from point blank range. But no, I do feel like Mudryk is a decent squad player. I do feel a bit bad for him that he's maybe not getting the consistent run of games that maybe he should be getting to perform well. But at the same time, there's just so much attacking talent ahead of him, like Pedro Neto, like Jadon Sancho, like João Felix, like Cole Palmer, like Noni Madueke. But if we're fully basing this on merit and form, I would maybe put him slightly above Madueke right now in my preference to potentially start. And it seems at times that Maresca actually has looked towards like Mudryk ahead of like a Nkuku or Felix when bringing on substitutes, or even Jadon Sancho at times. So yeah, I think he has been performing well, but I also feel like he's maybe been taken slightly out of the limelight now, as a lot of people before, when he had that stupid hair, he was a lot of people were saying, £80 million flop, etc., etc. Whereas now slowly he's been taken out more out of the limelight, and he's been able to maybe just get on with his football, which is good. But yeah, I wouldn't maybe start him in any of the next Prem games, but maybe around Christmas, if we've kind of like got a midweek fixture, it could be an opportunity for him to get a run out in the first team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, it's interesting because I wouldn't want to throw him into a game like Aston Villa and he doesn't perform, and then we're talking about him in the same vein that we did last season. So maybe gradually, I think we'll see him get a couple more minutes in the Premier League. But let's talk about Aston Villa, a game that I feel like if we win this game, there will be a bit more conversation about Champions League and can we. Someone told us we're in a title race at the weekend, last weekend just gone. I was like, I don't think so. But I'll ask you the question: are we in a title race at the moment? Are we going to be pushing Man City and Liverpool for the league this season?
No, I don't think so. When you look at how Liverpool are playing, the performances they're putting in, even how they played against Real Madrid, I don't think we're anywhere near that level yet. And even when we went to Anfield, we put in a good game, but we still came out with 0 points and they got all the points. So I still think there's a big kind of gap to fill between us and Liverpool. But I won't lie, I think you look at Man City, who have been underperforming recently. You look at Arsenal, you look at even potentially Villa, Tottenham.
Yeah,
I think we can compete with these teams easily now, which wasn't the case in the last few years. It's just annoying that we're not getting the results against them when we do play them. But I definitely feel like you look at some of the football we play and it's on par with theirs. So I think top four is extremely realistic because that's not an expectation I had in pre-season in the summer. I think I had us down for 6th or 7th even again.
Yeah.
So I'm being pleasantly surprised with how we've played, and I really hope we can maybe even push in to maybe get closer to Liverpool and put a bit of pressure on them. But I don't think we'll be anywhere close to getting any Premier League silverware this season.
I'd have to agree. I think we will have an input in who wins the league. I just don't think we will be the ones lifting the trophy at the end of the season. But I don't think we're far away. I think maybe another striker and a goalkeeper and maybe another experienced centre back, and we could be in that conversation. But Villa, unlucky against Juventus. I think they should have had their goal, but it was disallowed. They come into this one in a bit of indifferent form. They've not started the season as well as they potentially should have done. I think the Champions League fixtures are now kicking in, and it's almost having a bit of an effect on their Premier League form as well. But I feel like we should be winning this game. I feel like we should be beating Villa. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I feel like they're a really good team, really, really good manager, really good striking options in John Duran and Ollie Watkins. But I do think maybe the Champions League midweek fixtures and the intensity of the those fixtures and the opponents they're playing, I mean, Aston Villa, Club Brugge, Bayern Munich, it has taken a bit of toll maybe on their Premier League form. And that was apparent last weekend when they drew with Crystal Palace, I think 2-2. So I think we should be going into this game as the favourites. We're at Stamford Bridge, we're at home as well. There shouldn't be too many excuses. I'd be very disappointed if we dropped anything more than 1 point. So if we lost this game, I'd be extremely disappointed. Whereas I think, if you remember last season when we played Villa, we were just hoping for a draw at times. So it goes to show how much we've improved this season. But I'm still expecting a really, really tough game. I feel like this, like you said, this is the type of game, and if we get a win, people seriously start to be maybe like raising their eyebrows, like, oh yeah, Chelsea now are back to being at the top level. Because I will put Aston Villa in that top 6, top 8 category now, maybe alongside a Brighton.
Yeah.
But we haven't been winning against those oppositions. We drew with Man U, we drew with Arsenal, we lost to Man City, we lost to Liverpool, and now we've got Aston Villa, Champions League team. Like, if we beat Aston Villa, we get 3 points against them at Stamford Bridge. I think that's a massive statement. Massive, definitely. So yeah, I really hope we just go all guns blazing. The likes of Palmer, who's been rested now, steps up maybe in these bigger games, because sometimes he seems to like not play to the best of his ability against the better teams. And then guys like maybe Gusto and Neto have recovered from their illness and knocks when they missed out against Leicester, and they're back in the squad to play a part, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with everything you said. I think, I think this is a game that we have to. I'm not saying it's season defining. I think that's a bit of an extreme word to use, but I do think if we can win this game 100%, it sets us up. You know, I did say before we start, just after the international break, I said we should be expecting to get at least 3 points out of all these games. But I did point out that this is the most difficult game we've got over the next, 30 days or so, before the January fixtures come our way. But I do think we should be beating Villa just based on the form. I've picked my 11. I'm going to share it with you now. Interesting, maybe debatable. For the audio listeners, if you're not watching on YouTube. So, as I said before, I don't want to see Robert Sanchez in goal for a very long time. Probably a nice guy, but let's give Jurgensen a chance. I think he's someone that has proven himself, as we've just mentioned, not just based on last night's game against Heidenheim, but he's definitely someone that I think deserves a shot in goal. I've gone for Malo Gusto, right back, with Marco Correa as left back. Hopefully Gusto's fully fit, as you just said. I think he was slightly a doubt anyway for the Heidenheim game. So I'm hoping he's back in. If we're not, we're in a bit of trouble because Reece James is out. Josh Achiampong, we don't know if he signed that deal. He won't be starting. If he hasn't, it'll probably be Dizazi.
He got a straight red in his fixture last season, didn't he? Malo Gusto, I seem to remember.
He did, but it was was it not a controversial red? I think it was.
Yeah, I remember Far just looking at it for like 5 minutes. And
it was like a stamp, but it wasn't a stamp, I think, or a weird tackle, but it wasn't worthy of a red anyway. But yeah, he definitely should not have been sent off for that at all. Fofana, centre-back with Colwell as left centre-back. Now, as I said, debatable, because I've gone for Enzo Fernandez, who I think is undroppable. Not undroppable, but based on his Leicester game, I think he deserves to retain his spot. Lavio, obviously, been out of the team, injured since the international break. So I think I can't see him starting, but I definitely will see him get some minutes, I think, on Sunday. Caicedo, again, one that you need in there. I think he's proven his worth, after all the sort of noise around him when we signed him. He's surely shown us what he can do. Now, again, a bit more of a debate here because I've gone for Christopher Nkunku as the 10 with Pedro Neto on the left, which, again, is a bit out of favour because I think Maresca prefers him on the right. But I've put Cole Palmer on the right side because you made a good point just before that these are the sort of games that Cole Palmer needs to step up in. And I feel like, based on what he did last season, a lot of the games are playing off the right rather than in the 10. I think we need to start introducing Nkunku back into this team. He's always a threat in front of goal. We got to see it against Heidenheim. Nicholas Jackson has to start as a striker, but I think Nkunku is the 10. Palmer from the right. Noni Madueke just isn't delivering on that right-hand side for us at the moment. He's very selfish, selfish is probably the right word. So I've gone for Palmer on the right. But What would your lineup be? Would it be this? Would it be separate to this, or?
It's actually very, very similar. Yeah, very similar. I'm actually pleased you put Enzo in because that was part of my midfield as well. And my thinking was, given his Leicester performance and given maybe Lavia just returning to fitness, and we do need to manage his minutes and almost be careful with how quickly we reintroduce him into the first team fold after an injury, I would play Caicedo and alongside Enzo. And also probably Enzo, you're looking at him as your captain now as well with Reece James injured.
Yeah.
So that's quite an important factor to take in. I agree with Jorgensen as well. After that Heidenheim game, it's time maybe to make the transition from Sanchez to Jorgensen. The one change I will make, it's not Nkunku actually, because I want Nkunku to start playing and starting in the Premier League. So I do agree with maybe shifting Palmer to the wing and playing Nkunku as the 10. But I will not play Neto in this game. I feel like he just recovered from a knock maybe, so it might just be too soon. Again, manage his minutes maybe and bring him on as a sub. It's tricky. That probably leaves Madueke, Sancho, and Mudryk. I would have to go with probably Sancho after his assist against Heidenheim.
I was tempted.
I was a bit reluctant given he's played Thursday. I don't want to play him again, maybe Sunday. But yeah, I would go Sancho for this one and maybe get Neto off the bench at some point in the second half.
It's a good shout. I mean, I'm in an iron with Sancho because he played really well, as you said, against Heidenheim. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I just think we've got too many options. We've got way too many options. There's a shout for Mudryk, as we just said. You know, he's really been playing well in the Conference League games. This is a game where you try and introduce him, but I really think we have to focus on, as always, but more so getting the 3 points in this game. I just feel if we can, it just shows a statement of intent of what we're trying to do this season. And I feel if we can do this, some of the fixtures we've got coming up after this Villa game are winnable. They're 3 points in the bag if we play our cards right. And I think this is the most difficult out of them. You know, you mentioned Watkins and John Duran as the threats. John McGinn, Morgan Rogers, Leon Bailey. Really difficult team. We're coming up. Martinez in goal. Really, really tricky team to play against. Let's go for score predictions. Let's go for the predictions.
Yeah, I've been rubbish at this season.
So have I, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, actually, the only one I got right was the Noah game. I think I had like 8-0 or 7-0 predicted. Yeah, but yeah, for Aston Villa, I'm gonna go. I think it's gonna be tight. There'll just be the one goal in between the two teams. I'm gonna go 2-1 Chelsea. So it's the same scoreline against Leicester, 2-1.
I actually think it's going to be a draw. I don't think we'll win. I'd love to say 2-1. Part of me thinks that we can get a win, but defensively, if we start, and I know we won't see Jorgensen, which is why I'm saying a draw. It will be Sanchez in goal, and defensively, that always worries me when he's in goal. We're prone to mistakes at the back. We know that, you know, it's a common theme in our defense at the moment. So I'm going to go 1-1. It'd be tricky.
Yeah, and at times we have drop points at home. It has been a 1-1 against Palace, against Nottingham Forest. I could feel like it could kind of go down that route as well of a 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge.
Let's hope you said 2-1, so let's hope you're right. But let's hope we do get 3 points because, as I said, you know, step in the right direction. There's some really good fixtures coming up that we can win. So if we can get this over the line, get this out of the way, continue in the Conference League as we are, get some of these busy Christmas. I think we've got Everton coming up soon as well in the back end of December, which will be a tough one. Goodison Park, last game there for us. But yeah, we should be winning some of these games coming up. So I'm really looking forward to them. Theo, as always, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. As always, it's always a pleasure. Fridays is the best day to record our podcast. So, you know, yeah, appreciate you jumping on, giving your thoughts. If you're new to the channel, as I said before at the very start, please make sure you subscribe. Make sure all you've got to do is hit the little button down below. So make sure you do that before you leave. Leave your thoughts in the comments as well. Don't forget the Linktree link that will take you to the social accounts and the audio version of the podcast. So give that a listen to before the weekend is on you. And we'll be back next week. So enjoy the weekend. Let's hope for 3 points and we'll be back soon.